You know what they say about family reunions? They either bring out the best in people or reveal who they really are underneath all those polite Christmas cards and birthday texts. I found out which one mine was the hard way. It started 6 months ago when I decided our family needed to reconnect. We'd been scattered across 3 states for years, only seeing each other at funerals and the occasional wedding where everyone smiled for photos and then went back to their separate lives. I missed the closeness we used to have, or at least the closeness I thought we used to have, so I proposed a family reunion. Nothing fancy, just a weekend at a lake house where we could all catch up, let the kids play together, and remember why we're supposed to care about each other. When I brought it up in our family group chat, the response was lukewarm at best. Sounds expensive, my brother Mark typed. Who's organizing all this? Asked my sister Jennifer. When were you thinking? Summer's pretty booked, came from my cousin Lisa. That's when I made my first mistake. I volunteered to handle everything. The planning, the booking, the coordination. I told them not to worry about the cost, I'd take care of it. All they had to do was show up. Looking back, I should have heard the warning bells when no one protested my offer to pay for everything. No one said, "Oh no, let us split it," or "That's too much for you to handle alone." They just let me, the way you let someone else pick up a check when you're secretly relieved you don't have to. I spent weeks researching the perfect location. I found this beautiful lake house in Vermont that could sleep 15 people comfortably. It had a dock, a fire pit, a huge kitchen for family meals, and enough space for everyone to spread out without stepping on each other's toes. The rental cost me $3,200 for the weekend, plus another $800 in deposits and fees. Then came the food planning. I created detailed meal schedules, accounting for my nephew's nut allergy, my sister-in-law's vegetarian diet, and my father's diabetes. I hired a grocery delivery service to stock the house before we arrived, $600 for enough food to feed everyone for 3 days. I even arranged for a local bakery to deliver a custom cake with all the grandchildren's names on it. The activities took another chunk of planning and money. I rented kayaks for the lake, hired a photographer to capture family moments we could all treasure, and organized evening entertainment, including a bonfire with s'mores supplies and outdoor games. The bill kept climbing, but I told myself this was an investment in our family's future. By the time everything was booked and paid for, I'd spent nearly $6,000 of my own money. My husband David raised an eyebrow when he saw the credit card statement, but he knew how important this was to me. If it brings everyone together, he said, it's worth it. The weekend arrived, and initially everything seemed perfect. The weather was beautiful, the house was exactly as advertised, and people started arriving Friday afternoon in good spirits. The kids immediately gravitated toward the lake, the adults settled onto the deck with drinks, and for a few hours I felt like my vision was coming to life. Saturday morning was when things started to shift. I was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for everyone when I overheard my brother Mark talking to our cousin Steve on the deck. "She's really going all out, isn't she?" Mark said, and I could hear the tone in his voice, not admiration, but something else, something that made my stomach tighten. "Yeah, well, she always has to be the hero," Steve replied. "Remember when she paid for Dad's surgery and acted like it was no big deal? Same energy. Must be nice to have that kind of money to throw around," Mark continued. "Some of us actually have to budget for vacations." I stood there with a spatula in my hand, feeling like I'd been slapped. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was trying to bring my family together. But apparently that's not how they saw it. The comments continued throughout the day, just quiet enough that they thought I couldn't hear. Jennifer mentioned to my aunt that I was showing off again. My cousin Lisa made a joke about how I must think I'm better than everyone else since I could afford to rent such a fancy place. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened Saturday evening. We just finished dinner, and people were gathering around the fire pit for what I'd planned as a special moment. I'd asked everyone to share a favorite family memory or something they were grateful for. It was supposed to be heartwarming, a chance for us to appreciate each other. That's when Jennifer stood up with a mischievous grin and said, "Actually, before we do that, we have a little surprise for Sarah." She disappeared into the house and came back with a wrapped box. "We all chipped in to get you something special," she announced, and suddenly everyone was smiling and looking at me expectantly. My heart warmed. Maybe I'd been reading too much into those comments. Maybe they really did appreciate what I'd done. I opened the box carefully, still believing this was going to be something thoughtful. Inside was a t-shirt, navy blue with white lettering. I pulled it out and read the text. Biggest disappointment in bold block letters across the chest. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever, but it was probably only a few seconds before the laughter started. Not uncomfortable laughter like when someone tells a joke that falls flat, real laughter, the kind that means everyone is in on something except you. Do you get it? Mark asked, grinning. Because you always act so disappointed in the rest of us. It's a joke, Jennifer added quickly, seeing my face. You know we love you. Yeah, it's because you're always trying to fix everyone, Lisa chimed in. Always organizing, always planning, always disappointed when things don't go your way. I looked around the circle of my family members, people I'd spent $6,000 to bring together, people I'd cooked for and planned for and worried about, and saw them all smiling at me with varying degrees of amusement and expectation. Waiting for me to laugh along, waiting for me to be a good sport about being publicly humiliated at the reunion I'd paid for. I folded the t-shirt carefully and placed it back in the box. Thank you, I said quietly. This is very thoughtful. You're not mad, are you? Jennifer asked, but her tone suggested she didn't really care if I was. No, I said, standing up, I'm not mad. Actually, I think this is perfect timing. I walked back to the house where I'd left my purse and a large folder of documents I'd brought with me. I'd actually brought them for a completely different reason. I was the family's unofficial keeper of important papers. Wills, property deeds, insurance policies, birth certificates. I had copies of everything because I was the organized one, the responsible one, the one everyone came to when they needed official documents for loans or legal matters. I returned to the fire pit with the folder in my hands and that t-shirt draped over my arm. You know what? I said, my voice still calm and controlled. You're absolutely right. I am the biggest disappointment. I'm disappointed that I spent $6,000 to bring together people who think so little of me. I'm disappointed that I've been keeping and protecting your important documents for years, thinking I was helping family. I opened the folder and started pulling out papers. Mark, remember when you needed your birth certificate for your passport renewal? Here it is. I tore it in half. Jennifer, your marriage license copy that I've been safeguarding? Gone. Rip. Lisa, those property deed copies from when Grandma died. Oops. The laughter died immediately. People started standing up, reaching toward me, but I stepped back. Sarah, stop, Jennifer said, her voice sharp with panic. Those are important. Dad's military service records, I continued, tearing up more papers. Mom's insurance policies, great-grandma's original will that proves the family land ownership. Rip, rip, rip. Sarah, stop, Mark shouted, lunging toward me, but I'd already destroyed half the folder. You want to know what disappoints me most? I said, backing toward my car with what remained of the documents. I actually thought you cared about me. I thought this weekend would show us how much we mean to each other. Instead, you showed me exactly how much I mean to you. I got in my car and drove away, leaving behind a very expensive weekend, a house full of family members, and the scattered remains of irreplaceable documents blowing around the fire pit. The calls started 20 minutes later. First, Jennifer, Sarah, this isn't funny. We need those papers. Some of them were originals. Then, Mark, you're being completely irrational. It was just a joke. Then my father, Sarah Elizabeth, you get back here right now and fix this. But I didn't go back. I drove home, took a hot bath, and turned off my phone. By Sunday morning, I had 47 missed calls and 31 text messages. The panic had set in as people started realizing what exactly I'd destroyed. Mark needed his birth certificate for a job application due Monday. Jennifer was in the middle of refinancing her house and needed the marriage license. Lisa discovered that the property deed copies I'd torn up were the only existing copies. The courthouse had lost the originals in a flood 3 years ago. But the real panic came when my father called the Veterans Administration to request copies of his military records and was told there had been a fire in the records facility decades ago. The copies I'd destroyed were irreplaceable. The t-shirt incident was looking less and less like harmless fun. My phone finally died from all the calls, so they started calling my husband. David, bless him, told them I wasn't available and suggested they might want to think about why I'd reacted so strongly to their joke. By Monday, the stories changed. Now it wasn't a harmless prank, it was a thoughtful gift that I'd misunderstood. They were just trying to lighten the mood. I was being too sensitive. Couldn't I take a joke? But I could hear the desperation underneath their excuses. Mark had to pay $200 for expedited birth certificate replacement and nearly lost his job opportunity. Jennifer's refinancing was delayed by weeks, costing her thousands in interest. Lisa was facing legal complications with the property that might take months to resolve. On Wednesday, Jennifer showed up at my house, not to apologize, but to demand I somehow fix what I'd done. You can't just destroy people's documents because your feelings got hurt, she said, standing in my doorway with her arms crossed. You're right, I said. I can't undo what I did. Just like you can't undo what you did. A t-shirt isn't the same as destroying legal documents. You're right, I said again. A t-shirt was just the final insult after a weekend of you and everyone else treating me like garbage while I paid for your vacation. The documents were my decision to stop being your free storage service and unpaid personal assistant. That's when she finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. Why didn't you just tell us you were upset? Because I've been telling you for years and you never listen. I told you it hurt when you made comments about my money. I told you it bothered me when you acted like my help was just expected instead of appreciated. I told you I felt taken for granted. But every time I tried to communicate, you dismissed it as me being oversensitive or dramatic. So you decided to go nuclear instead of talking to us like an adult. I decided to show you what it feels like when the person you depend on stops being dependable. You wanted to call me the biggest disappointment. Fine, let me live up to the title. Jennifer left without another word, but not before I heard her on the phone with Mark from my driveway. She's completely lost it. We need to figure out how to get those documents replaced without her help. That's the thing about being the family's go-to person. You don't realize how much power you have until you stop using it. I had been everyone's backup plan, their safety net, their convenient solution to problems they didn't want to deal with themselves, and they had taken that completely for granted. The reunion weekend that was supposed to bring us together ended up showing us exactly where we all stood. I learned that my family saw me as an ATM with a planning obsession and a tendency toward disappointment. They learned that their ATM could make withdrawals too. 3 weeks later, I got a group text message. We want to apologize for how the reunion ended. Maybe we can all get together and talk this through. I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. You see, they weren't apologizing for the t-shirt. They weren't apologizing for the comments throughout the weekend. They weren't apologizing for taking my generosity for granted for years. They were apologizing for how the reunion ended, as if it was some unfortunate misunderstanding rather than the natural consequence of their behavior. A month after that, I heard through my aunt that Mark had finally gotten all his documents replaced, but it cost him over $500 and nearly 3 weeks of bureaucratic hassles. Jennifer's refinancing went through, but the delays cost her the interest rate she'd been promised. Lisa ended up having to hire a lawyer to sort out the property deed situation. My father was the only one who eventually called to give what sounded like a real apology. I think we got carried away with the teasing, he said. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Dad, I said gently, you gave me a t-shirt calling me the biggest disappointment at a family reunion I paid $6,000 to organize. How exactly did you think that would make me feel? There was a long pause. When you put it like that, he said quietly, it sounds pretty awful. It was awful, I agreed. And the fact that none of you seem to realize that tells me everything I need to know about how you see me. He asked if there was anything he could do to make it right. I told him the only thing I wanted was for people to stop expecting me to fix their problems for free while treating me like an inconvenience. 6 months have passed since the reunion that wasn't. I haven't organized any family events. I haven't offered to help with anyone's document needs. I haven't sent birthday gifts or Christmas cards. I've essentially gone from being the family coordinator to being just another family member who shows up to things when invited and minds her own business. And you know what? It's been wonderful. David and I took a vacation to Italy with the money I would have spent on Christmas gifts for everyone. We had dinner parties with friends who actually appreciate our company. I joined a book club where people think my organizational skills are helpful rather than annoying. I still keep in touch with my father and my aunt, the two people who seem to understand why I was hurt, but the rest of the family. They've learned to solve their own problems, and I've learned that I don't have to fix everything for everyone just because I can. Last month, Jennifer sent me a Facebook friend request. In her message, she said she missed me and wanted to put all this behind us. I didn't accept or decline, I just left it sitting there because putting something behind us implies that we both learned from it and moved forward together. But I think the only thing they learned is that their safety net isn't automatic. They haven't learned to value what I contributed, they've just learned to do without it. And honestly, that's fine with me. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and the kindest thing you can do for yourself is believe them. My family showed me that they saw me as a convenient resource rather than a person deserving of respect. So I stopped being convenient. The t-shirt is still in that box, by the way,